Hi, I'm Jeff Dockman, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit about my journey from atheism to Christianity. I grew up as a child of the 80s. At this point, I've been married for 29 years. My wife and I have three adult kids. Growing up, as I said, I grew up in the 80s, and I grew up in a household where we didn't really have faith as a part of our upbringing. My parents had grown up in Christian homes, they were Catholic families, some combination of Catholic school, but this was not something that was part of my experience. We said grace for supper. We would talk about God just very, very briefly, and it was never in any kind of a personal sense. So I do recall kind of going to church as a young person, but it was always in a context that wasn't a faith context for us. It was a context of, just as I said, holidays or some kind of an event. But that was not part of my upbringing. In fact, my peer group was very anti Christian, and a large part of my childhood and young adulthood was spent really exploring hedonism and identifying or finding the things that I considered pleasurable. We spent a lot of time going out and drinking and partying and going to bars and listening to music and having a good time. After I graduated from high school, I ended up joining the Army. And in the Army, my anti theism really deepened. I saw opportunities where people were leaving the partying life, and I really had no understanding of what would motivate someone to do that at all. And I've shared with others before that I really have never been a very well educated atheist at that point. I was against God. I viewed God as this massive impediment to having fun. And I saw no need for God in my explanatory framework. We grew up with science. We knew about the Big Bang. We knew that the universe just kind of exploded into existence, and we didn't need God to explain all the things that we saw around us. And so as I got older, that position in philosophy just continued to deepen and deepen. So how did that change? At 29, I was in a position in life where everything seemed like it was going really well. I was working in a good job. I was married. We had healthy kids. Everything was really solid, and yet something really felt like it was missing. There was some emptiness that wasn't fulfilled. And at the same time, I was working in a software position, and one of my coworkers, a great guy named Greg, was just a devout Christian, and he was there to come alongside me and answer questions that I had. And as I look back on it, it's easy kind of with hindsight to see that one of my big objections to Christianity was just the perceived hypocrisy in people. And Greg didn't seem to have that. He really lived out what he believed. And that was tremendously important to me, because when one of your main objections to something is the way that people live it, to see people that are living the way that they believe and proclaiming what they believe through their actions in their life was really important. Looking back, there were several examples of that in my story. I've met people that had a big influence on me that I didn't know at the time. And one example that comes to mind is I was sitting on the couch as a 18-year-old kid, and a Jehovah's Witness guy came to the door. And I was feeling particularly obstinate that day, so I invited him in. And as he sat there talking, he was talking about the Bible, and I looked at him and I said, really, at the end of the day, what makes yours better than mine? And he looked a little stunned, and I went back to my bedroom and I brought out a copy of Anton LaVey's Satanic Bible. And I expected this to just shock the guy out the door. Surprisingly, he continued to talk and engage. And after several days, he came back with a stack of papers that were answers to some of the questions that I had asked. And I promptly threw those away because I really wasn't interested in the answers. I just wanted to antagonize this guy. This man's commitment to his faith didn't allow me to just think of people as hypocrites anymore. And then with Greg, my friend from work, coming alongside and being that person in my life personally, it started to put some doubt in me as to what I believed. And at the same time, I started having these big questions of, is there more? And so I started reading and studying. And at the same time, I started attending church with my wife, which was really weird. She wanted to start taking our kids to church, and that produced a lot of tension in our relationship. And as she started back, I didn't go. I was not interested whatsoever. And one morning I woke up and I felt like I should go, and I didn't know why. And my wife was a little shocked. She was ready to walk out the door, and she was going to leave our two youngest kids home. And so it was a bit of a scrambling to get me there. And as I sat in this church service, it was one of those experiences where you really felt like the pastor was talking right to you. So through this, through my friend at work, I started participating in this year-long Bible study where you go through the Bible in a year and talk about the archaeological background and the philosophical background and so on, and just really get into studying Christianity and faith. And over the course of that year, I somehow found myself believing. So that was a fairly lengthy process for me. It took a year of going through the Bible where I started having this transition, but then it even took longer before I really felt like I was committed to faith and where I really felt a transformation in my life, where I deeply believed that Jesus is who he says he is. He is the Son of God. So as I got into that next phase of my life, I started seeing some challenges, some tension, who I was and how I lived my life and how I lived out what I believed, and in tension with friends around me. I had friends that were not interested in continuing a relationship as I started becoming interested in faith. And I started studying quite a bit more and learning a lot more about what I believe. I had a number of great opportunities to continue to grow. One thing in particular that stands out is an experience with an organization called the C.S. Lewis Institute. As a part of that group, I went through a Fellows program, which is a year-long discipleship program, and really focusing on both the heart and the mind. And that helped me to better understand as well what I believe and to engage with others that believe the same. I thought it was great to recognize that there are intelligent Christians able to speak articulately on all of these topics that are questioned and divided. And I think that's one of the things that I would really recommend as people who are interested in learning more about the faith, to recognize and remember that there are people, intelligent people, thoughtful people on both sides of this discussion. As I look back and think on the last 20-some years of my life as a Christian, I can see a lot of changes in my life. I can see changes in my priorities and my focus and my emphasis. Whereas before, my life was really centered more around myself and what was interesting to me, some aspects of Christianity can be really hard, to be honest. There are times where you feel like, what am I doing here? Life was so much easier before. Before I had to worry about, do I feel okay about some decisions I've made? Or is it okay to download this song from the internet without paying for it? Little things like that just kind of grab you and challenge you and make you aware of your own flaws and your own weaknesses. I would rather have the struggle that I know that God is working within me and transforming me than continue to live focused really on myself and my own happiness. It's been a great journey. So for those that do believe, my suggestion and advice would be really to be open. And this is actually true for both sides. Be open to listening to what the other side has to say to you. Engage with people. Spend time talking to people with different belief structures than what you have. Learn what they truly believe. Ask questions. Hear what they're saying. Don't just try and win an argument. Don't just try and get a notch in the salvation belt. We really want to be able to engage with people and understand at a deep level what their concerns are, what their fears are, what they're looking for in life and purpose and meaning, and to be able to offer them the hope that we have, which is a hope in a God who is deeply concerned with us. Understanding the person and being able to really hear where they're at is just so critical. And recognize that there are good answers on the other side. People have strong reasons for what they believe. And there are Christian responses to that. And it might take a little work to understand what those responses are and to learn about them. And so if you're coming to this from a place of skepticism, whether you've grown up in a religious home or whether it's something that's not been a part of your life, and you're wondering, how do I learn more about Christianity? How do I learn more about what Christians believe as a whole? Take some time to talk to Christians. Talk to people that you see living a life of faith, that you can see that it's a part of what they believe, and start to understand really what motivates them and how Jesus has made a difference in their life.